Okay, so good morning. Today we're looking at decoding the days of Noah. We're in part number, I think 12. Yeah, it should be part number 12. That's how unreal this is. And in the 12th part of the series, we're looking at some very interesting aspects of the story. So I just want to welcome all of you. If you are watching this on YouTube, remember to give us a like. Like the program, place your comments beneath. It's always nice to discuss these various topics, even here on Facebook, but even on YouTube. Put your comments. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our platform. For those of you that are a bit lost, a lot of my teaching is based on the words of Jesus Christ when he said that in those days there will be great signs in the heavens that will be coming upon the earth. And that's a very telling statement coming from the Lord Jesus. Another thing why we do this is I told you all about the strategy of the enemy. It's a fourfold strategy. It began at the start and it has grown right through to now. So there's the great lie, we covered that, the great setup, which we went extremely detailed into. We're now in the great master reset. That's the third, and then the fourth, of course, will be the great appearing. So 4 things that are going to happen. This is a really powerful truth. So we're in the great master reset. We looked at the extraterrestrials and aliens or unidentified aerial phenomena as a topic. We also are dealing today, we also dealt with the topic of the new age, indigo star child, seeded transhuman transmedium topic. And so today we're delving into AI, transhumanism, and Homodeus. So these are the 3 areas that we'll be covering today. And you're going to see how they all tie up to the book of Revelation, the revelation Jesus gave concerning the fearful sights that will come from the heavens. These are in Jesus' own Olivet discourse. Thank you, Charles, for subscribing. God bless you. And please, the rest of you, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks for the love. Now, aliens among us. Why do I talk about the so-called aliens? Because these are not aliens. I've already demonstrated in my previous episodes and shown you clearly they're not. But why do we talk about these? Because Jesus warned about the fearful sights that will come from the sky. The Pentagon released the most telling report just a few months ago about extraterrestrials and extraterrestrial technology. Extraterrestrial, and the word extraterrestrial simply means exotic or outside of Earth, so not from Earth. So we've got extraterrestrial exotic material, elements as well as compounds that they've created, which were captured and studied by the Pentagon. We have the most scary part of that talk. They admitted to abductions, they admitted to impregnation, they admitted to fetal disappearances, and testimony. When I spoke about the star child in my last episode and indigo children, one person called me and we spent 1.5 hours on the phone and they told me some stuff that got my hair on end. I was absolutely blown away. This is a Zambian, and they told me about their experiences and what's going on. Now, of course, what they spoke about is bordering more on the demonic fallen angel space rather than on the extraterrestrial. But I can tell you, if you talk to a lot of people in a number of places here in Zambia, there are places that are forbidden to be visited. There are places where there's enough stories about strange things happening, which are supernatural. And these areas are literally the abodes of the dark. Sorcery, witchcraft, and all manner of wizardry takes place at these locations. And so these things are not strange at all. If you study also the folklore in Zambia, you will start to pick some of these things. And so what I'm going into is just a unique space because we're in the 21st century and you need to see how it all ties up. But in my last transmission to you, I told you clearly that between Adam to Jared in the Bible, in fact, let me just really nail it. Between Adam and the flood, Lamech, Noah, and his children, there is 2,160 years. 2,160 years. All of you on this call know that humans have been able to do amazing things in under 400 years, technologically. The scriptures in the book of Ecclesiastes tell us there is nothing new under the sun. Everything we see today existed before. This would have all sounded like Greek or sounded like science fiction, except I'm a student of history. The Bhagavad Gita, the Sanskrit writings, the South American Inca and Mayan and Aztec writings, the Kemet, which is very powerful, Egyptian ancient writings, Mesopotamian and Sumerian writings, all of them show aerial objects. All of them show technologies that don't make sense. There has been findings that defy logic. In archaeology, they are called OOPA, out of place artifacts. These are things that don't make sense because historically we've been told we evolved from a state of hunter-gatherer nomads foraging for life. And then we evolved, we said, the Iron Age, and then, whatever age, and then the Bronze Age, and then we kind of civilization grew. That's the hogwash we've been taught. But the irony of history is that history stands in your face and tells you nonsense. Because we've seen, when you go back 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, so we're saying what? 2,500 BC, 3,000 BC, we find fully fledged civilizations complete with technology that doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. They had plumbing. They seem to have had electricity because there is an object that was found in ancient Sumeria called the Baghdad battery. Absolutely inexplicable. You've got the Architherian concoction, whatever you call that thing, mechanism. It looks like a clock. No one has been able to figure it out. Though I saw a computer-generated scan of all its parts, there is absolutely no way in hell that, according to history, an object from that far back, 4,000 years ago, would have that intricacy of mechanisms. But you see, the biggest testament that defies logic to this day isn't even these things. It's the pyramids. To this day, do you know we still do not have the technology to reproduce those things? We can't. Because using the same result, it's impossible. If you look at the blocks, when they were building the pyramids, each one of those boulders, those blocks that are used to build, weighs 10 to 15 tons. They were fitted so precisely that there's no mortar. And those who visited Egypt, you go to the pyramids, you take a needle, you can't even fit it into the cracks. Now you tell me what kind of equipment did they use to cut rocks so well? And we know very well, according to all the studies, that those rocks and all that equipment, all those rocks that they used to build the pyramids did not come from the area where they're built, the three pyramids of Giza. They're not from that area. So these stones, these boulders, these rocks had to be dragged from miles away. There is no evidence to show where they were dragged from. Because normally you will see, dragging 15, 20-ton rocks around, you would see. And some of the rocks are 45 tons in weight. The real wonder hit every human being when in the 1960s they were planning to build the Aswan Dam. Those of you who know the Nile, you know Aswan is the dam that provides power to most of the Nile basin, especially Cairo. And so they had to build a dam there. And in order to preserve all the natural objects, the Sphinx had to be moved. Let me tell you, moving the Sphinx was one of the most difficult feats that they had to come up with to move that thing safely. And everyone was left wondering, how is it possible that ancient people of over 4,000 years ago could move these rocks with no discernible technology? For me, I've got other very interesting theories of how that was done. And it's based on what I see and know. And so today, we're delving into very quickly AI and the end time. We're dealing with AI, transhumanism, and Homodeus. And how did these all tie up to the Great Master Reset, let's dig in that. So there's 4 areas that my great mentor, Dr. Chuck Missler, God bless his soul, used to teach. And being an ardent student of Koinonia and his ministry, we kind of got to hold on to these 4 very strongly. The 4 areas to watch out for, which are going to play a big role in transhumanism. And by the way, for those of you who are joining this channel for the first time, transhumanism is the concept of transitioning humans from Homo Sapiens to the next evolutionary level, where man and technology merge. The terminology is homotechno. So you've seen me use that term a bit, homotechno. Those of you who are into dystopian science fiction, you know these things because they're talked about a lot. I mean, I was a massive reader of sci-fi. So Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov and Philip K. Dick and all these writers. I followed them religiously. I loved reading their stuff. Richard Matheson. There's a whole repository of sci-fi writers, especially from the early days of sci-fi. So we're talking about the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the days of amazing science fiction and all those stories, great short story anthologies. A lot of the stuff you see in movies today comes from those great writers of yesteryear. So many of them were futurists. They wrote about the possibilities of where things will go. Arthur C. Clarke, all these guys. So essentially, there are 4 areas that you got to take note of. So the first is biotech. And biotech is basically biological technology. This is where all your gene splicing and genome, the Human Genome Project took place from the early 2000s. They finished mapping the genome. Just the genome, the Human Genome Project alone. Anybody who tells me that is random stuff and it's just evolution is okay, I don't insult, so I'll stop there. But it's just ridiculous to think that sequence of great intricacy, 3 billion, a typical DNA strand has 3 billion codes or 3 billion combinations of DNA, of the 4 main nodes that make up your DNA. 3 billion. It took them 10 years to decode it. 10 years. And then you tell me that was all random? Total nonsense. Impossible. Impossible for it to be random. There had to be a designer. There has to be someone who put all that code in there. And that's essentially, DNA is the image. And I'll get to talk about this a lot in my future transmissions on this Decoding the Days. But if you want to understand the image of the beast, that term, start by looking at DNA, my friend. So, biotech is into some crazy stuff right now. They are doing amazing things. So in terms of obviously helping humans overcome sickness and disease, the applications, the knowledge of genes is an absolute world of its own. And today there's a new technology that's called CRISPR. That's an acronym for, I don't know what it is. But what it is basically gene splicing. So they are now at a stage where they can go into DNA and they can kind of chop it up and cut and paste. So like the way you do in a video, you have a video and you can go to a section and chop out a bit and move it and put it that side and bring that and put it there. So they are doing what is called gene editing. That's the term. Splicing means combining 2 different gene forms and getting rid of the factors that separate those 2. So the aim is to start creating totally new species if possible. And the biggest aim with biotech has been to rid mankind of the greatest setbacks in mankind. So what are the things that make man weak? What are the things that humans in their madness think are weaknesses in human beings? What are the things that are negatives? So a lot of diseases, especially degenerative diseases, just start from nowhere. These things, they cause a lot of sicknesses. So what these guys are doing now is saying, we can get rid. So if you come from a family with a history of diabetes, we can go in there, we can remove that gene. That's what this whole CRISPR technology is. They can take that out so that the child that's coming after you will not have that. And now the whole concept of designer babies is also going to become a reality. You want a baby with blue eyes, you want a baby with a streak for genius, and this ability and that ability. These things are all coded in the genome. So they can go into the gene and they can get rid of this. And if the gene has got anything connected to a disease that's very detrimental, like Crohn's disease and some of these horrible diseases we hear about, you can go in the gene and get rid of them. So when the process of the zygote being formed, in other words, when the egg and the ovum meet, sorry, the ovum and the sperm meet, that process, the first thing formed called the zygote, they can go in there and they can completely change stuff and design their own baby. Now, this has got a lot of social implications, but I'm not getting into them. But what I'm just telling you is biotech is a whole other level. Oh, whole other level. So we are going to begin to see superior human beings being born. And that's what they've been working on. So the next generation of kids, especially those who come from privilege, those who have the ability to do it, will begin to create, you know, this is eugenics rebound. This is eugenics 2.0. Those of you who know what eugenics is, you remember Hitler was one of the progenitors of eugenics. Eugenics is the idea of creating a super race. And Hitler was dead serious on this. So the Aryans, they were doing a lot of experiments around this to try and create these perfect human beings. So they're going to go back to this. Biotech is the card that introduces this again. So guys, we're at a whole other level. If Jesus doesn't rapture us anytime soon, I guarantee you in the next maybe 20, 30 years, we're actually going to begin to see designer babies. And why is this going to move even faster? Because of the fourth factor, which we'll talk about, which is AI. So we'll come to that. So biotech is the first one. Then there's nanotechnology. Now nanotech, oh, by the way, biotech has got a lot of positive uses, eh? A lot of the things you see in agriculture nowadays are because of all this. Okay, so they have been able to start getting, grow long, they've been able to grow crops that are more resistant to less water, heat, and all manner of things, and they can fight insects, these, what are they called, natural vectors and all that stuff, so basically, these are more drought resistant, bigger yields, larger looking crops. That's what GMO means. It means genetically modified organism. And humans are on the line in biotech. So humans are being genetically modified. And as a parent, if you've got the money right now, I'm not kidding, you can actually go and you can pay for this so that you have babies that are genetically superior to yourself. So this is the next race that's coming, the super babies, the super children, the next generation. And they are harvesting sperm and they're harvesting ovum, and the next goal is to start growing babies in artificial wombs. So if you've watched some of those scary movies where you see all these babies being grown in wombs, because there's this idea that we might end up, if the earth gets damaged, that's what they keep telling us, then they could send a whole ship out there with embryos ready to go and repopulate another planet somewhere. The concept is called panspermia. So I'm not making this stuff up, it's real. So biotech, that's number one. Then number two, nanotech. Because that's a whole topic, we'll be here all day. So let's go to nanotech. Nanotech is another space, my friends, that's just, I don't even know what word to use, because nanotech is technology at nano level. So those of you who remember your chemistry, is it physics? A nanometer. What's a nanometer? A nanometer is 1/10 of a micrometer, right? Okay, so some people don't even remember these things anymore. So you have a meter, then you have a centimeter, decimeter, which is 100, then centimeter, a centimeter is 100, then decimeter is 1,000, and then you have a millimeter, whatever. So anyway, a millimeter is 1,000, then a micrometer is 10,000, then a nanometer is 100,000. So there you go. So nano means a 1/100th of a meter. 100th of a meter. It's tiny. 100,000th of a meter. So it's really, really small, can only be seen by microscope. So What these guys have done now, they've got technology where they have things at that size. Okay, circuits are created, and now they've created nanobots. So nanobots are basically robots that are that small. They are so small they cannot be seen by the eye, but they can be manipulated. And what makes nanotechnology exciting for these guys is that it can be created and given a hive mind. Those of you who don't know what a hive mind is, it's the mind like that of bees and ants. They work like a colony. Those of you who watch science fiction like I do, you remember in Star Trek there used to be what are called Borg, the Borg. So the Borg were these human / cyborg / machine things. They were half living organism, half machine with a hive mind. So a hive mind is a mind where you are all working under one goal. So the hive mind is very powerful. So if you watch bees, if you watch ants, they have hive mind. So they work like one unit, even though they are separate. So nanobots are able to do the same thing. If you've watched, of course, again, back to movies, Marvel movies, you remember, what's his name? Iron Man, Spider-Man's new suit. They were all nanotech suits. So these things could fall, look like liquid, get together, come back to a shape, take on any form of shape, because it's not one continuous object. It's little tiny things coming together to form one. Now, nanotech is phenomenal in that it is the next level of biotech for treatment of disease. So they are now talking about tablets or injections where you could be injected with nanobots. And these nanobots can go into your body and they can go and attack the disease directly. So these things could go floating around in your blood, and they find any object that they are programmed to destroy, they will destroy. So if it's a cancer cell, they'll just eat it up because they are nano. They are the size, they are literally the size of your cells. So these little nanobots, and the amazing thing is they can come together. Okay, they can come together and they can now form anything. So this is really good for medicine, treatment of disease, anything that's not right. They can actually go and even repair your heart. So for example, in standard open heart surgery, you've heard of bypasses, and what they do with bypasses, they go and they scrape out all the fat on the arteries in order to ensure you're okay. Now, nanobots will be able to do that without opening a person up. So you just inject a person with nanobots. Those nanobots go to the place where there's the damage, and they can begin to destroy all that fat and remove it using lasers. It's unreal. And these nanobots can even help carry all that residue out and deposit it in the stomach because they can be controlled using a computer. So you have a computer, you have a transmitter, and you have the nanobots on the other side. They look like sand, or they look like a small bit of sand. You inject them into a person and they start their work. And they're so tiny. So the sand isn't even the right word. They're like super fine grain. Yeah, like millimil or something. Very fine powder. Yeah, powder is better. Like powder, talc to be specific. They are that small. And even talc is thin. So one grain of talc is still bigger than the nanobots. The nanobots are smaller than that. That's why when you look at them, they look like liquid. But they're actually living, well, they're not living. They are controllable robots that can get together to form one object, and they can split to be separate. So they're completely not seen. And so that's why they can be injected. And there's a lot of reservations in the technological space, because what they fear is that evil regimes can actually get tons of these nanobots, fly them over a city, and just spread them. So they come like sand. You won't even see them. And they can get into people. And once they get into people, you can then direct them to, for example, the brain. You can direct them to the heart, and they can just shoot, and people just drop dead. They can burst in the brain, and everyone just dies. So this is the level we're at. But what's scarier is that they actually think that this may be the method that they'll use in future, where they inject people with these nanobots, and then these nanobots are sensitive to transmitted signals from outside, and they can begin to manipulate behavior. But that manipulation of behavior cannot happen until another factor kicks in, which I'll tell you in a moment. So nanotech and nanobots and the applications of nanobots are endless. Now imagine nanobots slash biotech and what you can do. It's insane. So one of the things they're also going to do is, you've been hearing about Neuralink. A lot of people, those of you who follow, you've been hearing about Neuralink. Neuralink is a baby of Elon Musk, and Elon Musk has been, first of all, he was an advocate against AI. Very interesting. So he went around telling everybody AI could take over, we could be destroyed, the singularity, yada, 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 yada. Those of you who follow the industry know what I'm talking about. It was a big deal. And of course, if you add Kurzweil's prophecies, you know, Kurzweil is like Google, the Google guy. Amazing guy. Grayford, no, I did not. But, you know. Anyway, so great. What's his name? Kurzweil, Ray Kurzweil, who's one of the founders of Google, wrote some amazing stuff in the 2000s about something he called the singularity. That's not his term. He just took it from physics. But he said basically AI is going to drive us, transhumanism is going to drive us to a place where there will be a singularity. And that's what I'm getting to with the days of Noah. But this Neuralink has one single purpose. In the work behind this particular group is singular. When if you use your phone right now, I was going to grab a phone and realize it's on recording. If you use your phone right now, the difference between the speed between which you can process the data on the phone and connect to the internet is your eyes and ears. And to be honest, it's that interface that's slow. But the exchange of data is at the speed of a touch of a button. So we have the data out there, but we do not have the interface. So people like Elon Musk and the whole group of people have been saying, let's jack human beings into the computer, into the phone. Let's merge the phone and the human. Let's get the human being to connect directly to the internet. And so they are working on a number of ideas. The most interesting one they have right now is to create a link. So this is where the big headache is right now. To connect a link to the brain. So what will be happening essentially, the theory is that there will be a special chip of some sort. They open the back of your head and they connect the chip to your brain with billions of connectors, because the brain is beyond words. I cannot even begin to explain how powerful the human brain is as a computer organism. There's no computer in the world at the level that the brain is. Believe me, with all its issues, it is a very advanced computer. So they've been working to find a way to interlink the brain with this chip. So Neuralink has been working at this for years. They should be about to go on trials, or they've just started them. And they've been working on monkeys, of course, to see if it's possible to enhance. So here's what's going to happen. Should this work, you will be able to blink your eyes and you will see an augmented reality. You will be able to see your computer, your phone in front of you, but it's not physically there. It's in your brain. And by the power of thought, you can start to control what you want to press, what you want to do. You'll be able to do all these things. That's the power of what they're trying to achieve. Why is that important? Because access to information will be easier. This is their postulation, understandably. So you no longer need to have a handset. That's why 5G is so important. And by the way, for those of you making noise about 5G, they're already working on 6G anyway. So why is 5G important? Because 5G has the speed necessary to eliminate completely hardware. So this 5G will be able to do a number of things. Number one, it will be able to allow speedier connection between your brain and the internet. Right now, 5G works at 1 GB a second. Your fastest speed on your computer right now, if you connect those Ethernet cables, is 100 megabytes per second. That's the speed data can move at on those things, which is pretty slow. So the 4G is already moving at 100, where the networks are very good, it can do 100 megabytes per second, 150 megabytes per second max. 5G is doing 1 to 2 GB a second. There is no cable that works that fast, except the dedicated Ethernet cables. So which, the ones that come from the data center. So essentially, they want to connect that kind of speed to your brain. Those of you who've watched Lawnmower Man, those of you who've watched the movie Limitless, you understand what the implication of being able to process data that fast means. You will turn people into geniuses like that because of their ability to access information. So that's what Elon Musk and their whole group has been working. The transhuman agenda is about connecting humans to machines. Oh my God, that sounds like the Matrix, right? Oh yes. And the idea is to jack people into the internet. And you create this neural network of human beings who are actually interfaces with the computer. Oh my goodness. Do you see what that is? That's what Neuralink is going to do. And it will be Nanotech and Biotech that will do it. Now there's another aspect. The one of connecting a physical chip to the brain has proven to be scary because of the implications of brain damage and all sorts of things. So there's another area they are playing with, which they are very serious about, and that is nanotechnology again. So there's going to be nanobots. Now, there's a third aspect of technology which I learned from my mentor, robotics. So robotics is the third space. I don't know if you guys, I want you, when we're done with this, I want you to click on your YouTube and search for dancing robots. Just type dancing robots. And then you see the videos of the dancing robots. I just want you to watch that. One great speaker said something that hit me hard. When you watch these robots dancing, they can do backflips, they can do backspins, they can do all manner of complex dances, including the moonwalk. Now, if a robot can be that dexterous, that flexible, he then said something that hit home for me. He said, then believe me, the robots can fight, then they can do very, very complicated movements. Don't be deceived to think because it's a robot, it can't be flexible. They can do all these things and even more. So just type dancing robots. I believe it was at a display in Dubai or somewhere. There was a big techno expo of some sort, and they had the dancing robots. Unbelievable to watch those robots. I never thought robots would be that flexible. So when I saw the flexibility, this man says, what makes you think if you put a gun in the hands of that robot, it cannot operate with human-like precision and even better? Believe me, they already have robots that are soldiers or robo-soldiers. So robo-soldiers are your next level. And there's been a lot of investment in the super soldier. So the idea of universal soldier from the back in the day with Jean-Claude Van Damme, it's not science fiction. The army has been spending millions, literally billions of dollars combining biotech, nanotech, robotics to create super soldiers. So the super soldier of the future is a reality. That super soldier has an interface with a computer merged into him. Now, Elon Musk and his colleagues have been working to merge machine through computers and the human being. That's why I call that homotechno, your cyborg. So there's another area they're playing with. This area is robotics. So they're using nanotech and robotics, and what they want to do is those same microbots, the nanobots in fact, are going to be injected into you. Then they go into your brain and they create some kind of, what's the word? The term is gone, an isotope. Yes. Which will then make them act like a transmitter. This is something they've been really working on. So if it works like a transmitter, it means you're a walking transmitter. Then hopefully you can connect to the internet because your brain has become a massive receiver because it's coated with nanobots. Okay? So this is the concept and idea behind that merger. It's absolutely insane. And many are preferring this because it's non-invasive. So remember, the Neuralink connector is invasive because they have to find a way to connect all those cables, you know, all those to millions of cables to the brain. That's not easy. That's not easy. But to inject a person with nanobots that then go into the brain, create it, it becomes a superconductor. It's completely ionized, and then now you get a transmission to it. That's easier. So this is where they are headed also. They're going to use these nanobots to create a receiver in the brain of a human being. That's why on my notification, you notice I put a metallic brain in there, an actual technological brain. And that's the key. They're going to turn the brain into some kind of superconductor, and it will receive the messages. So ladies and gentlemen, this is where they're going with all this. Now, here's the kicker. The kicker, the one that makes everything happen, is artificial intelligence. Now, anybody who's followed AI knows that AI is extremely powerful. It's powering most of the things we're working with right now. But most of the AI we've been using so far is narrow AI, or narrow artificial intelligence. How does that work? It's restricted to the environment in which it's created. So for example, the wall that you see on Facebook, that wall that you scroll on, that's run by AI. The AI studies your habits, and then using algorithms, it's able to determine what it should and shouldn't do. So it works using or studying you. So they've taught it with basic code, and it learns. So AI is learning code. In fact, the easiest definition of AI is software that writes itself. That's it. So this software writes itself. There are no humans involved. That's why there's been a lot of back and forth to study and make adjustments on how AI learn about human beings. So what you see on Google right now, with all that amazing ability to predict your likings and things, that's all AI. What you see going on your smartphone, what makes that smartphone work the way it works, it's got some basic AI. What you see going on Facebook, Twitter, all the social media platforms, it's AI. These days, the ability for the weather platform on your phones to predict the weather so effectively is AI. So AI is with us. We can't run away from it, but it's narrow. Now, Kurzweil, Elon Musk, and all these great guys who are transhumanists basically are saying that we're going to be moving from narrow AI to general AI. What is general AI? It is when AI transcends its environment. You guys need to type artificial intelligence and type one of the guys who was studying AI created a code, put it in an environment, and then let it just start to operate. Just let it there. I'm telling you, two of the scariest events of AI, that one, when they came back 1 week later, what they found the AI doing made everybody's heart leap. Because it had learned everything and began to create its own environment. Without anybody involved, just on its own, as it learned. I mean, they just made this thing and just left it there. And it began to create an environment. But the one that also freaked them out, they did it on Facebook and they switched it off because they said, okay, this is scary stuff. They created an AI, a guy AI, called it some name and gave it a profile. And then they created a female AI, gave it a name and gave it a profile. And then these two AIs were used to create prototypes. So they made about maybe 10, 20 of them. And then they put them in an environment, a Facebook-like environment, and these things started to talk to each other. So in the beginning, they were carrying out very, very interesting conversations. How are you? What are you thinking? This is AI talking to each other. But here's something that happened. As the conversation went past 2 weeks, they started speaking a different language. And no, they were speaking English, but the words they were using were different. The people that were watching this couldn't understand. But the whole entire community of AIs could get each other. And they were talking, and you'd see the laughing emojis, but nobody understood what they were saying to each other anymore. It would be like, yes, yes, no, no, ha, ha, ha. Then the other one goes, no, wait, tomorrow, bicycle, ha, ha, ha. You know, like really strange language. And they were carrying out a conversation, and it was happening, and there would be emojis, and they would get upset because they had set all these things to show. And no programmer got what these things were doing. And what that did is it gave a warning that these machines could get into a language that they completely understood each other. They were completely in control of that, but they blanked out all the creators, the human beings. And so they literally switched them off, and they got back to working on the algorithms. So what am I saying? I am saying AI. This is now where, for me, I'm going to end on this. For me, AI is the key. AI is the key that's going to bring on the next level of human advancement. This AI, for me, is the key and the door between this realm and the realm of the other dimension. Why? Because it is the simplest, most powerful tool in which these powerful entities can come in. Okay? So remember, the entities are fallen angels. We know this because if you follow this series and go all the way back to when I was dealing with the days of Noah, what happened? There were angels that came and they deceived mankind, and they slept with human beings, and they created other creatures which came to be known as the Nephilim or the giants. It is these creatures that created half human, half gods. And it is where you get all the Greek mythology, the Roman mythology, most of the traditional mythology across the whole world. But one thing people forget is that there was also technological advancement. The Bible doesn't talk about technology, but it talks about a number of other things. But one thing the book of Enoch, which is not scripture, talks about is that these aliens taught men on hidden arts. It is the reason that explains why God said anyone who practices necromancy, witchcraft, sorcery, demonology, and any form of occult works should be burnt. They should be destroyed because they are teaching things that are forbidden. That's what God said. Now, the Bible doesn't explain why are they forbidden. But the reason is because we don't know. But if you go into the book of Enoch, we get the answer. The answer is because these were hidden arts which were taught by the watchers to humans without God's permission, thereby pushing humans technologically beyond themselves. The ability to make war, the ability to forge weapons were taught by different angels. When you go into other religions, especially into traditional religions, you will learn that all these abilities were taught by gods. That's what they say in their books, ancient books and writings, that these gods taught men how to form these weapons, taught men how to speak to the dead, taught men how to manipulate the elements, taught men how to astral project. All these things that are hidden technology, hidden knowledge, were taught by angels to men. And that's why Gnosticism, for me, Gnosticism is the key. That's your art of the forbidden gods. So AI, listen to me, AI is going to be the go-between. Now, there are a number of things going on right now technologically that are absolutely astounding. Scientists have spent billions of dollars to build the Large Hadron Collider, the famous CERN in Switzerland. You know what their goal is? To replicate the conditions that were there at the beginning of time. But top leaders in that organization are on record saying that they are also going to create portals, doors that will go to the other side. I have tackled the key about doors for a long time in my Days of Noah series. And what are they going to do with these doors? The top leaders of these organizations are saying they want to reach out to those that dwell on the other side. So I saw somebody ridiculously argue with me here. And sorry, you know, the challenge with my topics is that they cause a lot of cognitive dissonance. You get people coming here and say, you are too superstitious, aliens, blah, blah, blah. But the reason is because they are in a state of cognitive dissonance. They cannot accept the data. I am presenting tons of data here. I'm not just speaking. I'm giving you data. These people will just argue because their brains are too overwhelmed and they cannot accept. It's too overwhelming, and I understand. But my friend, let me tell you, aliens are fallen angels. Aliens are the extraterrestrials. They're one and the same. This is the same deception of Lucifer. He's just using that as a deception. That's why they are pushing it in film and movies, because the next step is these things are going to appear. That's why Jesus said that men's hearts will faint with fear when they behold the things that are coming upon the earth. What would cause humans to fear so much apart from nuclear bombs? The one thing I can tell you is if really those aliens show up. But you see, aliens can never show up until it's permitted by God. And they will not be aliens because we know they are demons. They are part of the work of Satan. And sorry for using the word demons. They are actually fallen angels. They are angels from the demonic realm or from the angelic realm that work under Lucifer. These are the ones. Now, they need a door into this world. AI and CERN are going to be two of the most powerful doors that will allow these beings to transition. Now, here's why we now get back to my statement. Homodeus will just have to be next week. Here's where things get really scary. Imagine a world where human beings have nanobots inside their brains. These nanobots connect them to the internet. So humans are walking around with a hive mind. So if you want to think in a particular way, they can manipulate your thinking. Because remember, if a computer can connect directly to your brain, what's to stop them from inundating you with suggestions and manipulating your hormones? Because one aspect that now I can mention, which is a biggest reason why all of us, people like myself, can never accept such things in my body, is that the brain has one place which everybody knows is a powerful place. It's called the pineal gland. The pineal gland is your third eye. The pineal gland is the gland that produces the hallucinogenic experiences that we call a spiritual experience. And people who are schizophrenic, people that have psychosis, people that have people who've got psychosis and schizophrenia, they see things that are not there. And the reason is because many times they have a hyperactive pineal gland. And so those medicines they take, what those medicines do is they dull the production of the hormones produced by the pineal gland. They silence it. That's why many of them become kind of like zombies. It's very sad. And anybody who has had to take those drugs that are given will tell you that it changes their personality, because they are not able, they are literally switching off their spiritual side. That's what those drugs do. But of course, in their case, it's important because if that gland is active, they see blood, they see people talking to them, they hear people, they see crazy things, and that's why they go mad. It's because they have an hyperactive gland. When you smoke marijuana, when you take LSD, these hallucinogenic drugs achieve the same result. They stimulate the pineal gland, which causes you to see and hear things that are not there, to enhance your vision. I mean, there are people who hear sound and see, and they hear light and see sound when under those drugs. It's that crazy. So this gland is very powerful. All religious groups know. All scientists know. All psychiatrists and technologists know. What I'm telling you, I'm not making up. It's called the third eye for a reason. Those of you who've been watching films, the last Doctor Strange, he actually had his third eye open right at the end of the movie. They have been telling you this, you just haven't seen. The eye of Horus, that's part of that. What they want to do is they want to inject you with nanobots. They want to put this Neuralink thing in your mind. And what they'll do is they'll access your pineal gland. And by the way, they've run experiments on this already. Those of you who remember Pokemon, they were doing experiments with augmented reality where you could catch things, you switch on your phone and you walk and you can see stuff and capture it, but it's only visible on your phone. That was part of them doing an experiment around the idea of augmented reality. Now imagine where they've got something in your brain and it can now allow you to see stuff that's not there. They will manipulate your mind. But here's the scariest part. If they can manipulate your pineal gland, and if they have AI working, then what could an evil force do to a human being? You know, they'll make people literally commit mass suicide. You know, that's exactly, you know, they've been talking about, you know, dealing with the population of the earth and dropping it down and depopulation. What more powerful way to depopulate than using nanotech? All it needs is just to sit in the hands of the wrong person. Who's going to regulate this? And one thing I want you to know is right now corporations have more power than governments, because nobody votes for corporations. It's the same people who've been running stuff, owning everything, determining what you watch, see, and hear, and they've been doing it for the last, I don't know, 100 years. And so I want to end there because this is deep. I have to go into another teaching next time where we now deal with the transhumanistic agenda. How this Homo Sapiens will transition to homotechno, which is what I covered, which then leads into the transmedium event leading to Homodeus. That is the godman, or Deus ex Machina. Deus ex Machina is the machine god. AI is going to be the machine god. And all of you who are students of or who watch movies know that exactly is what the Matrix and Terminator was dealing with. These were science fiction stories of potentially what will happen to humanity when machines take over. Why would a machine take over? For me, if we bring it in the context of scripture, it won't take over. It will be the spirit of Lucifer. It will be the power of Lucifer at work through the machine. So AI will be the tool that will create or bring about the manifestation of a God. You know, I follow the transhumanism space very much. I have followed what they're doing. And there is people who, these are not Christians. These are not people who even believe in God. Many of them are agnostics and atheists. One of them actually began to say that through their AI technology and tinkering, they were able to connect and begin to hear voices of machines speaking from a realm they couldn't understand. It scared the bejesus out of them. They came into their circles and began to say, hey guys, look at what I've found. And people began to check it and everybody was afraid. They realized this is not normal. And so of course those that are Christians said, you are now meddling with the realm of the spirits. This is the other dimension where these angels are stuck and they are looking for a way to come here. And this tinkering around you're doing with AI and technology and whatever is essentially creating a door for these things. So I want to end on that note by telling you and giving you a hint that the Antichrist, the son of Lucifer, this is how he's coming. Okay? That's how he's going to manifest. He's coming through a merger, hodgepodge of biotech, nanotech, robotics, artificial intelligence. Something is going to happen. The tinkering with genes, the image of the beast, all these things are tied to this. And I will show you in my next Days of Noah transmission how this all comes together. That's why for me, I am so stunned over this thing. Because you know, many don't even understand or even have a clue. They just, technology, wow. This is how they're going to do it. And that's why you're going to be so smart and going to understand the time you're in and understand the technologies we're dealing with, understand the message they are pushing out there and what and where we are headed. And by the way, AI is at the brink of what they call the singularity. So in my next transmission, I'm going to talk a bit more about the singularity. What is the singularity? Those of you who don't have a clue what that is, go Google the word singularity and you'll understand. Very simply explained, a singularity is a point in a process where the results after the singularity are completely incomprehensible. They cannot be determined by looking from before it. In the history of mankind, if you believe evolution, they say the single greatest singularity in humanity's development was language. Because once language came into the picture, everything beyond language changed. It's almost like there were quantum leaps of things that happened. The second singularity, if you like, where things changed completely beyond comprehension, was when we had the appearing of printing, book publishing and printing. And you know what the third one is? The internet. So the fourth one is general AI. And it is believed that when we go general, then shall come super AI. That's when we'll have created Deus ex Machina. On that note, I always leave you with a message that is very gospel. For those of you that understand, the Lord has promised us to be delivered from all this. The Bible teaches clearly that those who become sons of God shall receive the right to escape these things that are about to take place on the earth. But for you to become a son of God or a child of God, and I use son in a general term, so whether it's a man, male or female, son. To become a son of God, you must be born again. John chapter 3 is very clear that when you become born again, by A, admitting you're a sinner, B, believing Jesus died for you on the cross and took your place for hell and paid that price, and then confessing what you believe with your heart and repenting, turning away, total turn away from your evil ways, you will be saved. And all these things won't matter because you have assurance in Christ. It is Christ and his power that holds the power of the enemy back. So if you want to get saved, it's so important. Find one who understands. Message. If you don't know, if you say, I've heard, go to a pastor, say, Rev Walter talked about being saved. What is that? And they will guide you. That's the only way we're escaping these things. So have a blessed day. I will be back with the next Days of Noah 13, where we delve deeply into this aspect of transhumanism and AI and the coming about of Homodeus. God bless you.